Go. Great. I think we are live. Hi, everybody. I'll just give everyone 1 second, see if there's people flying through the internet still. But I think we're getting there. Okay, lovely. Great, wonderful. Right, well, thank you very much for joining us. We're here today for our session called Measuring What Matters for Children, which is the launch event for a new MeasureUp toolkit, MeasureUp for kids, which, as I'm sure we all are all aware and all experience, there's not a kid in Britain who's not desperate to be able to measure and value social value and well-being. So here we are. But in all seriousness, hopefully this is a topic that's of interest to everybody today. So I'll get us through to what we're going to be covering. So I'm absolutely delighted to be able to be joined by some great people today. My name's Catherine Manning. I'm the Programme Director of MeasureUp, and we're being joined by Will Watt, who's the co-founder of MeasureUp and also founder of State of Life, who's going to be talking around children's wellbeing valuation, the practice, and where we're at today. We're also joined by Michelle Baker, who's the Technical Director for Social Value and Stakeholder Engagement at AtkinsRéalis, who are the sponsors of the MeasureUp for Kids Toolkit. So yeah, delighted to have been able to collaborate and partner with such great organisation and with the support of such a wonderful person. So I'm delighted that Michelle's with us, who'll be sharing a little bit from AtkinsRéalis's perspective. We're also joined by two people who are leading on programmes in the field, working directly with young people. So first off, Leanne Batterson, who's the Social Value Coordinator for BWB Consulting, and Mitch, Holland, who's the Choral Outreach Lead at Liverpool Cathedral. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I think everybody's on mute already, but there's quite a lot of us on the online today, so do keep yourself on mute just to manage the sound for everybody. We are recording the session, and we follow up with an email with resources and a bit of a write-up of the session, so that'll get sent out to everybody afterwards, and it also gets posted up onto the MeasureUp website as well, so those that couldn't attend today can still catch up. So just to let you know that that's happening. We love it. We love knowing who's here. We want to be collaborative and we want to hear from you as well. So please do say hi in the chat, share where you're from, and please ask any questions or share any comments or feedback as we go through. There'll be a Q&A section at the end of the session, so we won't address those immediately live, but we will come back to them in the latter part of the session. So what are we actually going to be covering today? So our aims are to set the scene on the toolkit. Why have we developed this? Where's it come from? And focusing in then on valuing children's well-being. Why are we doing that? Where's that come from? Why is that different from other well-being measurement and valuation work that that's being done in this space? We're also then going to be hearing from those working with young people. So Leanne and Mitch, who I just introduce you to, and then we're going to do a walkthrough of the actual toolkit itself. So what can you find on there, and how can you get into it and start to use those different tools and resources? Then we'll, like I say, we'll have a bit of time for Q&A and some what's coming up next. So that's what we're aiming to cover. But really, we're here because of young people and children. If you know whatever's in this toolkit, what really matters is young people and children who, you know, irrespective of if we're parents or we have children in our immediate families or in our wider community or not, or if we work with young people or children or not, they are a part of our societies, and we should we have a responsibility to understand young people and children's experience and value their well-being and include that in our decision making. So for social value practitioners like ourselves on this call, that's the point. You know, that's hopefully what we're interested in, and why we've focused in on developing this toolkit. I should give a shout out to State of Life for this photo here, and one that's later in the presentation, because I've borrowed this from one of their blogs that's about children's well-being and the C-WELLBY. So yeah, shout out to the State of Life team for this lovely little chap here. Cool, okie dokie. So to get going, I am going to pass over to the first of our speakers. So if I could invite Michelle Baker to the stage, the online stage. And yes, I'd love to hear from you now, Michelle.
Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, really great to be here, and amazing to see so many people signed up for the call as well. Hopefully you'll get a lot out of today. I don't know who's running the slides, but I think there might be a little slide that I kind of popped in after this one. So those that know me know that I quote this quite a bit from Professor Chris White, the architect of the Social Value Act. I went to a talk. He presented it a little while ago, and he really said that for social value to really have impact, it would take private, public, and third sector organisations all to work together, and I really believe in that. And so when MeasureUp caught my attention a few years ago, when I watched a webinar that they presented, I think I found it on LinkedIn actually, I was like, oh, this organisation looks amazing, and I really need to find a way to work with them. So probably fast forward 2 or 3 years, I was lucky enough to get our global fellowship for social impact at AtkinsRéalis, and that gave me an opportunity to be able to call up Catherine and have a conversation about how we could work together in a partnership. So yeah, big shout out to AtkinsRéalis for enabling this as well, and we're really committed to social value in our organisation through the programs that we deliver, the talent that we've invested in. I think there's a few people from that talented cohort on the call today, and like I said, you know, being able to have this vehicle of my fellowship to do this work. So when I spoke with Catherine and others at MeasureUp, it was like, well, what's really important at the moment, and you know, where could we make this impact? And so we decided on this toolkit for children, because I know that I have worked with some organisations who, you know, go and work with children, and one of the questions I've asked them is, you know, how do you measure impact? And they have kind of come back to me and said that was a little bit of a struggle. So that kind of sparked the idea to work with MeasureUp to do this. And you know, with everything that MeasureUp does, it really aligns with my values as well about that fairness. I'm a big believer in fairness and that collective impact. And I think making this information freely available is incredible. So whilst yeah, it's which Catherine and others on this call are going to run through during this session. It also is a little bit more inclusive, because it allows those organisations that, you know, maybe don't have the capacity or the funds to pay for a monitoring and reporting tool. So hopefully what we've created here will get a lot of traction and a lot of use in the industry. So yeah, that's just a little bit about how this came about, really. So really looking forward to listening to the rest of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Michelle. And absolutely, a core part of how MeasureUp has started at all has been through collaboration and working together between partners, initially through the co-founders, but it's only through people using it and supporting it that we'll be able to continue to develop the resource for us all. So yeah, thank you for that. So secondly, we're going to move on to what is it that we're talking about here? So children's well-being and the valuation of children's well-being. And I'm really pleased to be able to pass over to Will Watt here from State of Life to be able to talk about this. Not least because he's much more experienced in the actual practice than myself. So I'm delighted to be able to pass to an expert. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen so that you can see Will here as he talks through this part.
You can see Will 10 years ago. That was. I've got to get a new photo done. No, it was actually 5 years ago at the launch of State of Life. So yes, thanks, Catherine. What do? We are we've been going for 10 years, and we've measured social value, and which has now become, over the last 10 years, defined in page 5 of the Treasury's guidance as essentially welfare economics and the impact on the well-being of the population. The economics in this area has transformed significantly in the last 10 years, to the point where there's something called HM Treasury supplementary guidance on how to measure and evaluate well-being. So really helpfully, you've got a clear definition of what social value is from the Treasury. You've got a measure of economic value that's recommended in the Treasury supplementary guidance. You know, when they change it, it's like, if this is really important, here's how you measure it. Here's an economic measure, which is called the WELLBY. And we've been sort of involved in that over those 10 years and the evolution of it, alongside people, I hasten to add, that are a lot cleverer than me. We'll come and talk about who they are, but like London School of Economics, and somebody called Gus O'Donnell, who his nickname in government was God, because he was head of the civil service and an economist. And this is all the area that they work in. There's a Children's Wellbeing Act that's going through Parliament at the moment, so this is very timely. Gus, for one, is lobbying very hard for, okay, how do we measure this and how do we do this? So what we're talking about is right at the forefront of it. From our side, as Catherine said, we're described by all these clever people as the grunts and at the coalface, because we just measure it with real people in real time on the ground. That's what we're really good at. We're not the brains, we're the sort of the grunts. But we do measure and evaluate wellbeing with Girl Guiding, Duke of Edinburgh. We've worked in youth and sport for development and with kids for a long time. There was a gap that was identified really by one of the authors of the Green Book guidance, was Alan Little. He was then at the Department for Education, and the concern was that wellbeing was now a priority. It was in the Treasury guidance. All the measures were in place. There was a measure of economic value, but it was all done for adults. So how would you do it for children? And when we say children, it's broadly kids under 15. And when he was at Department for Education, he asked the question. We were like, oh, this is how we've been doing it. And then LSE were like, well, this is how we've been doing it. So that was 3 or 4 years ago. And essentially, Alan's become our chief economist at State of Life. With LSE, we sort of collaborated on sort of solving it. I wouldn't all of us together, really, to the point on collaboration. And so what you have now is you've got the adult measure of well-being, which is called the WELLBY, and then you'll see that there's I can post the links to it, but there's a paper from LSE on, okay, if we're going to measure it for adults, how do we do it for children? And it essentially, just on the technical side of it, which is relevant, the key measure for how you measure well-being in adults is overall, how satisfied are you with your life nowadays? And it's called life satisfaction, but it's not a concept that's really understood by kids necessarily. And there's other ways that we can do this with kids. There's two ways really. You ask about happiness, and you can ask something called the Strength and Difficulties Questionnaire, which is used in education with kids. And what LSE have done, and Isaac Parks and Alan and Jasmine in my team, is we've mapped those questions to life satisfaction so that we can see that they're valid and they work. And that's what's created the children's measure of economic value, the C-WELLBY. So it's not really changing the WELLBY, it's how can you measure a WELLBY, the measure of economic value, with young people, and that's what's in the C-WELLBY. There's loads of stuff that I could go through on the technical side of it, but the paper from LSE that's I can post in the blog is it does explain it all. But essentially what you're left with in terms of what MeasureUp's brilliant at is how can you apply a value, which is explained as part of the toolkit, and then how can you apply it and measure it with kids. That's all in there with these are the questions you would ask. And I'll stop there because otherwise I'll just go on and you'll all go fall to sleep about how you do it. It's all written up really well by LSE, Alan, and the clever people that work with me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Will. And yeah, the papers that Will's mentioned there are they're available through their own websites, through State of Life, through some blogs there, but also referenced on the MeasureUp website. I'll point out the particular value where where those are shown in a minute. But yeah, thank you.
I was going to say it is all referenced brilliantly in MeasureUp, and the whole I mean, to Michelle's point earlier, the whole reason we did MeasureUp with Catherine and the team is how do you make all of this, how do you democratize all this stuff and make it freely available to as many as people as possible so that they can use it and start to understand it, rather than hidden behind loads of paywalls with murky methodologies that no one quite gets and just pumps out big numbers. So that's what MeasureUp is there to fix. So credit to everybody who gets involved with MeasureUp, because the more this is made open and transparent and understandable, the quicker a progressive form of economics gets adopted, rather than co-opted by bad actors. Let's say that. I think Matt Howarth put it nicely when we launched MeasureUp, and he said sharks, and I was like, oh, that's quite harsh, but he's probably right. But yeah, sorry, Catherine, but yes, it is all referenced really well in the toolkit, and I won't send the links because it's all in the MeasureUp toolkit.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Will. And yeah, I think that's it. The aim is for us all to be able to access these resources and use them and hopefully collectively to be able to understand what we're talking about a bit more and a bit better. So to that point, we are going to now hear from those who are actually working with young people. So we've got Leanne and Mitch online because as a part of developing the toolkit, one of the ideas, the sort of I suppose the basis of the tools and resources that are in the toolkit was actually testing and validating the use of the MeasureUp values that relate to young people and children. And we reached out to Leanne and Mitch, the team at Liverpool Cathedral, who we've worked with in a variety of different ways, and we know that they have these programs working with young people, and we thought rather than me and Kubra and other MeasureUp team members sitting and making up some young people programs to test, wouldn't it be nice if we could use some real world examples and see, well, what's it actually like being able to look at MeasureUp values or a resource like MeasureUp and say, well, what could we use in this to be able to understand, measure and estimate the value that's being created through these programs for the young people and the children that are impacted. So we've got a private sector perspective through BWB Consulting, and then a VCSE anchor institution perspective through Liverpool Cathedral. So first off, I'm going to pass over to Leanne, who, there we go, who's going to talk us through the educational engagement programme that's one of the case examples and studies within the toolkit. So Leanne, I will invite you to our virtual stage.
Thank you. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leanne. I'm the social value lead at BWB. And yeah, I'm just going to briefly talk you through our education engagement approach and what led to our work with MeasureUp. So for context, BWB is an engineering and environmental consultancy working in the construction industry. We've got 5 offices around the UK with around 350 staff. So next slide, please. So a key focus for us historically and within our social value strategy is education engagement. So that's both at a school level, for example, careers talks, mock interviews and practical STEM sessions, as well as older like mentoring, lectures and delivering CPD. And during our strategy implementation, I identified that our education engagement had been quite reactive and generally one-off, and as a result, less impactful. So to achieve a greater impact and drive efficiencies, I created a more engaging, proactive strategy and approach to our education engagement. The main aim of this strategy is to have a greater impact on the students we reach through working together in a more targeted, longer-term manner. So inspiring future generations and empowering teachers with real-life industry knowledge and support. And having a more defined strategy around our education engagement moves us away from providing those single visits, and it allows us to showcase a more thoughtful approach to inspiring future generations, which is the ultimate aim as an industry. So moving on. I conducted several areas of research for the strategy, such as industry key drivers, specifically the skills gap, our current position with STEM delivery and that of the wider industry, and utilised existing contacts to better understand what schools actually need to ensure our proposal was going to be valuable. And this subsequently led to the creation of the engagement journey graphic shown here to document and guide schools through that initial introduction. So this enables us to manage the expectations of schools on delivery while demonstrating our potential offering across the different key stages. So next one, please. For the delivery of the strategy, we are utilising the local careers and enterprise hubs to gain support in identifying school partnership options, and that's based on need and alignment. We're gradually increasing our delivery in each region, so by 2027, we expect to have key partnerships developed in each region of operation with annual delivery plans created for the implementation. So here at the top, you can see an example delivery plan that's been created in partnership with our first school. And this basically provides a baseline of delivery across the year. So each party knows what to expect and can be planned and carried out annually, adapted as required. We aim for each school partnership to last 5 years, and this will allow for that holistic aim of the strategy. So if we were to engage with students in year 7 in our first year, we should then see those same students each year as they progress through their education. So achieving that larger impact on their journey. And this also ensures that we're meeting the Gatsby benchmarks in which schools are being assessed against. So it ticks their boxes for them. So moving on then, to better showcase the type of engagement we're delivering, here are a handful of the activities just to sort of showcase some examples. So we delivered a careers rotation event in our Nottingham head office for year 10 students. It was sort of like a speed dating event, but with professionals, and it enabled them to understand the different types of careers available and to see what an office environment is like. And we had some of our apprentices talk about their roles and career paths to showcase different routes and make it a bit less daunting with the students too. Some of our sustainability leads are supporting the Eco Council at our Manchester school. And we delivered a session on air quality and acoustics where the children got to shout into monitors and understand how the pollutants around them impact our health and well-being. We delivered skills workshops and follow-up mock interviews with level 2 students in Nottingham, helping them to prepare for their next steps. We delivered an interactive session to the whole of year 8 in a Birmingham school, where the students, they became architects, engineers and builders, sharing their bridge designs with other teams to develop and build. And this mimicking the collaborative nature of designing for the built environment. We've supported T-level students with a lecture on sustainability of structural engineering and a live project. And we then took them around the site to bring it to life. And we subsequently had 2 of those students come and complete some work experience with us. We delivered interactive careers talks and activities on structural tower building and demonstrated physics using Coke cans. We've acted as mentors during the Solutions for the Planet Big Ideas programme, with our team even reaching the finals, and we're doing it again this year. We've also delivered an annual STEM day in London on flood permeability, where the students learn about flooding and the different types of materials to mitigate against it. We've also done things like species identification, so kids get to match the animal with the poo, which obviously they love, and with the habitat and the food and stuff like that. So it just makes it a bit more interactive for them. So moving on then, how our work with MeasureUp came about. So we want to deliver all of this great stuff as a business, not because it's a project commitment, but because we believe it's the right thing to do. And when it came to me assessing the correct way to measure our impact, I was left feeling quite frustrated by the current measures out there. Basically, there was one measure used commonly that simply values staff time spent delivering activities in school plus any prep, regardless of what the activity was, who was delivering it, or how many students it impacted. So say one senior engineer delivers a careers talk and practical STEM session for 1 hour to 30 students. That only equated to about £17 of value, not at all representative of the impact of or of that person's time. So I came to MeasureUp to see if there was a better way for us to more accurately measure the impacts we're having, hence the adaptation of engaging in youth activities value. So we took a step back and assessed what we're actually trying to achieve in raising aspirations by inspiring and empowering young people, which should result in more positive futures and in turn supporting economic growth and addressing the skills gap in our industry. So through collaborative assessment, we developed this measure that values the delivery of time against students reached. And we're also measuring if the delivery was to a school of high deprivation, if the activity was employability skills related or not. And we're also looking to add gender breakdowns. So to more accurately record the impact being created, we obtained feedback from colleagues, students and teachers following an event. And we use this to inform our delivery plans and our resources going forward. So we took an initial measure at the start of this process and identified that from the activities we were delivering, 70% of students stated it would inform their future. So because of this, we use that dead weight of 30% against the impact we're reporting. So we're not overclaiming the impact of every student, basically. Additionally, we're trying to measure if school engagement, in particular STEM activities, are being impactful in the industry as a whole. So we've added some questions onto our application forms. This should eventually allow us to monitor applicants applying for jobs related to STEM, specifically younger applicants, and if they remember a STEM event impacting and inspiring their journey into the industry. One thing we are still struggling with, though, is including education engagement activities on bids, because we truly believe in the value of this activity, yet on tenders where other impact measures are being used as the assessment criteria, the value of that additional delivery against the time and effort simply does not match. So it makes it quite unviable for us to deliver effectively. And it actually puts us off adding it within our social value proposals, which is a real shame, to be honest. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. And I will now pass you back.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Leanne. And it's fantastic to be able to hear the process and the progression of the programs that you're putting into place through BWB Consulting. And I love Social Value Geek here. Anything that's like, well, we measured a bit of this and then we've made a change and then we've added in some additional questions or things are gathering a bit more evidence. I'm like, yay, it makes my little geek inner soul very, very happy. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And now we have Mitch joining us, who's going to talk us through our second donated case study or case example that we've been able to use within the MeasureUp for Kids toolkit. So this is their Liverpool Cathedral Schools singing programme. So I'm going to take down the slides and then invite Mitch to join us on the virtual stage to be able to present about your programme.
Thanks very much, Catherine. So I'm Mitch Holland and I head up the choral and music outreach here at Liverpool Cathedral. We are really, really grateful for all the work that Dr. Anne Casson has done with MeasureUp so far. Anne has been our main correspondent with MeasureUp, and that has been really wonderful. And also when everything is published, the work that that Professor Simone Kruger-Bridge has done in all of her research to kind of get us to this place too. The school singing programme was founded in 2012 by Stephen Mannings, who is currently Director of Music at Liverpool Cathedral. And it was set up with a view to expanding recruitment for our cathedral choirs, and it led to 10 years of term-based projects, which had around 1,000 children involved every single year, 30 to 40 schools involved every single year in all of those projects. And it became a really healthy recruitment tool for our cathedral choirs. One of the other things that was set up at that time was a junior choir that worked alongside our school's singing programme. I was appointed in 2023 to change the focus of that from a termly project to a longer term engagement for schools. So we've built a music curriculum, which is where Professor Kruger-Bridge's research kind of overlaps between the projects in her initial research and my starting and the curriculum value that we start to add. It's a multifaceted outreach program that I think covers several objectives. We try to bring music to life for the young people of the Diocese of Liverpool. If you don't know what a diocese is in the Church of England, it's an area of oversight covered by bishops, by areas, by deaneries and different areas to kind of create accountability within that place. Liverpool Diocese stretches from Southport in the north down to where the Mersey estuary cuts through Warrington in the south, and to Wigan in the east, and the Mersey in the west. So that's our diocesan area. But our aim is to bring music to life for the people in that area. It's to use singing as a teaching tool to deliver a music curriculum across the diocese, and to provide children with a cultural experience that so many in this area won't have. It's amazing, even when you kind of go out to Knowsley boroughs, so even schools that are only 20 minutes drive away from Liverpool, how they've never come into the centre of, some of those children have never come into the centre of Liverpool. Some of those children have never experienced this amazing building. We're in the largest cathedral in the UK, the 5th largest in the world. And there are children who are 20 minutes drive away who have never, ever experienced this place. So that's some of the things that we use as part of or some of the objectives we have as part of our programme. We do this mainly in 3 different educational areas. So we teach a music curriculum to faith and non-faith schools across the diocese. We have 2 different ways of working with those, and we deliver one-off events to schools who might have limited contacts, limited funds, or are just kind of trying to taste what we do, really. We also have our outreach choirs. So as I said earlier, we started with 1 in Liverpool. We now have 3 junior choirs out across the diocese, 1 in Sefton Borough, 1 in Knowsley Borough. I still got our 1 in Liverpool, and we have a youth choir that is based at the cathedral. So we're engaging children aged 6 to 18 throughout the music process as they go about what they do. Our music curriculum classes work for 30 weeks of the year in schools, and we work for 30 minutes every week with every class. And we get schools buying into our programs, or we get churches buying into our programs on behalf of the schools. We're currently working with around 2,000 children across 25 schools at the moment, which is brilliant, and it's the largest our program has been, and it's excellent. We work with a wide range of music, so we work with pop songs, and we work with folk songs, and we work with classical music, and we work with music from other cultures, deliberately trying to allow children to see themselves in everything we do. Part of the cultural work that we try and make happen is that we invite all of our schools to a big performance at the end of the school year in the cathedral. So those children who've never experienced this place will get to walk into this building. They'll get to sing in here, and they will get to experience something of what it's like to sing amongst 500 other children with a live band, with the country's largest organ, which we've got here as well. They will experience all of that just by being part of our school singing programme. Our one-off events, as I said, the sessions are slightly longer, and so but for fewer weeks, so children will engage for a shorter period of time. But they get to do things like perform with a live orchestra, which I don't know if you've ever tried to do that with a school. It's not particularly easy to get a live orchestra in to sing with a school, but we have the facilities and the space to be able to do that with 300-400 children at a time, still singing and performing with them. So we're able to kind of facilitate all of that, as well as our outreach choirs, which then we have around 100 children currently involved in our outreach choirs, and they meet every week during term time. They perform not only in Liverpool but throughout other parts of the country too. We're trying to take them as far as we can. For some of those children, it'll be the first time they've ever been outside of the Northwest. So again, it's trying to give those experiences to children. For some children, when we take them even outside of Liverpool, it's their first time outside of Liverpool, and we're trying to give those children experiences, not just of music, but of the rest of the world. In 2026, we were really proud to see our first young person from the school singing programme being appointed to our choral scholars. Choral scholars in the Church of England are paid professional singers. They are training paid professional singers. And we've been really fortunate that we have been able to appoint somebody who was one of the first people in our programme, who has come through the programme, come through the Cathedral Choir, and is now on their way to becoming a professional musician. They're going to be paid next year to sing with us in the Cathedral Choir. We are really fortunate that children who join the junior choir very, very early on have gone on to lead careers, to take on careers in musical, go and study musical arts-based subjects, and have expanded their horizons. And there are loads of exciting stories that we see within schools at the moment. I have a particular story of a school that is not very far from the Cathedral. We started teaching their year 6 classes at the beginning of the term, and I don't know if you've ever tried to teach singing to year 6s. It's not entirely easy to do. They're not overly engaged sometimes, and this one class I was warned about before we even started, and the first kid in the class I learnt the name of. You never learn the first kid's name through good things as a teacher. It's one of those, and this kid, I had a conversation with staff who were asking me if I wanted him to be taken out for future sessions. This kid has stayed in for the whole of for all of my sessions. That child who has gone from being disengaged in education, from being disengaged and disruptive, deliberately disruptive to his fellow students, has just been cast as Willy Wonka in his school's performance of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We found the thing that's connected him to education. We found the thing that has just shifted it for him. And I am so incredibly proud of him. I'm so incredibly proud of the work that he is able to do, but also that we've managed to find just that moment, that element of somebody that is able to change their whole perspective and their whole future. And I think that is what we have been trying to find some sort of value for. And you can't measure that entirely with numbers, but we need to find as Alex has just said, finding the spark that fuels us. We need to find the number that compares to the spark that fuels, and how that can change society. And it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the work that MeasureUp is doing, that we can see those children who may come from deprived backgrounds, who may come from households where life is not easy, where we see children who have not had access to the opportunities that my children will have access to, as an example, I know I want to give my children access to, how we can find space for those children amongst everything we do. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Mitch. I could listen to you talk about the stories of the young people that you're working with for the whole of the rest of the session. But I should probably give an introduction to what's actually in the toolkit. But yeah, it really positions it so well to say, why did we make this, and what's the place for measurement and valuation of young people's experience and well-being within the context of the actual things that we're doing, not as a separate exercise, but in relation to these activities that are so impactful on people's lives. So we're going to have a quick whistle-stop tour of what's actually in this toolkit. So let's take a look, and let's everybody do some drum roll music to see if my magic little link here, oh there we go, got the donut of doom, which is what my mum calls that little circle, and here we are inside of the MeasureUp for Kids Children's Wellbeing Valuation Toolkit. So it's this is housed on the MeasureUp website. You'll find it under the How to Use tab at the top, the top options of the screen. And so in here we have an introduction part to the toolkit that gives a little bit of information about why children's well-being. Why do we need a different approach? Why aren't the option? Well, why is it important in the first place? What's happening for our young people? And why do we need a slightly different approach to what's in place already? That as Will has explained, it is a more appropriate approach for adult experience rather than for young people and children. So there's some information in there that just gives a bit of a whistle stop or a brief intro to the topic. There's more information we've got a fact sheet and glossary, so all of this is referenced properly through the fact sheet and glossary resource. Then secondly, we've got this grouping together of any of the MeasureUp values in the full set that relate to children and young people. So they're in the full value set, but this brings all of these ones together that relate to this particular topic, or particularly to children's experience. So we've got in the set at the moment, we've got our engaging in youth activities value, one around a young person's well-being programme, the overall value about children's well-being, so improved children's well-being, which is the value that's based on the C-WELLBY that Will introduced us to before. So particularly through this value is where you'll find the links to the different resources and reports that Will was referencing. And then finally, or newly, we have a brand new value in the set that's been published as a part of the launch of this toolkit. So this is HE, or health related 1.2, increased children's physical activity. And inside of this value, we've got a headline value, as you find with all of the different values in the MeasureUp set. This one, £4,300 of well-being value per child or young person who's active, which is up to 60 minutes per day. This is based on the collaborative project working with sports, or for Sports England, developing a new social value model that had been developed collaboratively between State of Life, Sheffield Hallam University, Manchester Metropolitan University and the London School of Economics. Yeah, so I won't go into all the details of all of that, but there's all the links through to the research there. And to be fair, I'd recommend reading the report, because it read lots of social value reports, and this one's really good. It's very engaging. There's some really useful and easy to understand explanations of the values in there. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can take my perspective as relevant for everybody, because I'm very biased about these things and enjoy most social value reports, but I really enjoyed reading it, so I'd highly recommend that. And one other part that I want to just point out, the structure's the same in this as the other values, so bronze, silver, gold plus level measurement advice. Interestingly, at the silver level, we've got the differentials in there reflective of the areas that were researched as a part of the research of the model that that the collaboration have developed, that look at the different experience for different groups of young people, so based on factors like gender, ethnicity, disability, or socioeconomic status. So yeah, that's just a brief intro to the values themselves. And then actually in the toolkit, we've got a variety of resources that people can use. So there's the overall, or the key document, I suppose, that underpins everything else, which is the full test and validation report, which walks through the examples that Leanne and Mitch have just talked us through, and tests the different values in relation to those examples. And we've got an example estimator, the fact sheet and glossary, and then some practical tools that people can use as well. So an action checklist, an impact pathway, and a more brief overview of the case studies. So in those different resources, just to give you a little bit of a flavour of what you'll find, the test and validation report, I won't show you the full report because we'd be here much longer than the next 10 minutes, but it essentially gives an overview of the process that we went through to be able to test the different values that are in this, housed together in this toolkit. Should point out it's the three already published values that have been tested, because the increased children's physical activity value is new, so that one hasn't been tested as a part of this testing. But basically we took those two case examples and we walked through this 4-step process of what would you do if you were going to use one or other of the MeasureUp values in relation to your activity. So step 1, you define the activity, and as a part of that you define who is it that's most affected, and what's the activities and what are the outcomes that we think that group of people are experiencing. Step 2, you then use that information to be able to match to or align to the most appropriate MeasureUp value. So in this case, using that short list of the 3 children and young people related values in this set. You'd then do step 3, record some data, some details about your activity or your outcomes. And it's at this stage that you could be looking at the different levels of measurement. So a bronze level, a silver level, and a gold level. Even at a bronze level, though, there's certain factors it's useful to be thinking of. So one about the quantity, so how many people or thing or unit are you going to record, and the second part, the duration and the frequency. So how long is your program going on for, how often are people participating in it, and how does that relate, or is there difference to the MeasureUp value itself? Step 4, calculate or estimate the monetized value, and there you can do that slightly differently depending on the level of data you've been able to gather. So the rest of the toolkit resources help to walk us through those different steps of that 4-step process that we've been through as part of the testing and validation. So resource 1, or next resource, that is this, we've got a template for creating your own impact pathways, which essentially walks you through that step 1 of the 4-step process of, say, define your activities and outcomes. And in there, it's a PowerPoint slide deck that describes what an impact pathway is and describes these different buckets of information that you might want to define. So essentially, what's the activity? who are the stakeholders, and what things, changes, outcomes do we think that they are going to experience or might already experience. So, for example, we'd undertaken that for each of the case examples. So for the schools singing programme, there's an impact pathway in the overall validation report that describes the activity, outlines some of the outputs that happen because of that activity. So number of pupils, number of activities that are taking place, number of sessions, those sorts of things. Then there's the outcome. So what's actually happening or changing for the young people. So learning new skills, building confidence, improving happiness, well-being, things like that. And then we've got the impact last part of the pathway, where we say we're representing those outcomes through a monetized social value. I'm sure there's many practitioners on the line where we could argue about the naming, what should be sitting under each of those boxes. But in essence, I'm fingers crossed, hope that the majority of us could agree that in general, following a pathway of mapping out from the thing that you're doing, understanding the people that you're actually, whose lives are being changed, and then the things that are changing for them is a really helpful way of being able to then say, well, what thing are we actually valuing here, or what does this social value monetized number mean in relation to what we're doing? So that's one resource for step one. So next, you've got your activities, you've got your people and your outcomes mapped up. You've got to then decide, well, which is the most appropriate measure up value to align to. So in the validation report, we've been through that process for each of the two test examples, looking at the three values that we were looking at, and then using this sort of matrix to say, well, what do we be looking for to be able to help us to make this decision? So we defined these categories of thing that we're thinking about to be able to help us there. So is it relevant? Does it relate to the thing that we're doing? There's the duration question. How long does the measure up value last, or how long does that value represent the change for, versus how long is the thing that we're doing? Is it the same? Is it vastly different? Is there something we need to do about that? Can we measure what we're doing in relation to what the measure up value says, and then this final use in this case. So this was the last bit was about the singing programme. This example here relates to the exercise we've done with the STEM programme. So you can see the best measure up value to use in relation to this case was the engaging in youth activities. So that's along with that would be most appropriate, and the improved children's well-being, yes, maybe, but with caution. And then we said, well, probably not best to use the young person's well-being programme because it's less relatable or less relevant to the programme that's being put into place. So that's in the validation report. It's also, all of this is outlined in this sort of overview of the case studies, so a shorter document, it's a bit easier to digest. Finally then, well, this covers two steps, step 3 and step 4. You've got to record some data, some information, some evidence about the actual programme, and then you can go through an estimation process. So this example relates again to the singing programme, and here's some of the steps that we've been through in our testing of how to go about the calculation or the estimation using the measure up value. That's all, let's say, all in the report in detail. This is the bronze level example. I should say all of this is sort of dummy data. This isn't us going into each of these programs in detail and saying this is exactly what the social value is. This is us testing the values in relation to these donated test case examples. There's also silver level and gold level in the report as well. For all of that, but as you go further down that pathway of measurement, things can get a bit more complicated. I should say actually first, you can work through these examples on something that we're calling the MeasureUp. It's an estimator, so it walks through all of those 3 steps, and it's got the examples of these activities and then the information, so you can kind of download that and play with it to say, oh, if I change some of these numbers, what does that do to the final value estimate? So there you go, walks through those 4 steps I've just outlined. And then there's an action checklist. So again, walking through the 4 steps and saying, right, have I identified my stakeholders, described activities? Have I thought about these different factors for the MeasureUp values, etc.? So those are all of the resources in the kit. And finally, here we go. Yes, in the full-on report, there is some, it can get a bit mathy and more complicated when you get into some of the economic descriptions or explanations of the calculations. So we have included some additional economic terms in the fact sheet and glossary. There's a glossary of social value terms on the MeasureUp website already. This is in addition to, just to sort of help us all in reading some of the reports and the background research, as well as understanding the stuff in our validation report. So I know we've kind of hitting the end of our time of our session. I did want to leave a bit of time to be able to ask
I think Catherine might be having some technical difficulties. Will, do you want to answer any of the questions that have come in through the chat while we're waiting for Catherine to come back?
Yeah, I can try to.
The biggest one, I think, is the one from Alexa. With SDQ, since it's been used from 2 to 17, do you have a mix of some children self-reporting and others having parent-teacher reporting if you serve a range of ages?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Often kids under 10, it will be necessary. There's all, I mean, the practicalities of collecting the evidence and GDPR permissions and opt-ins under 13 is really complicated. It's part of the reason why this hasn't been done so far. But yes, the SDQ is often completed with teachers or parents if the children are under 10. Under 10 is probably the most difficult area to do. Over 11 is relatively straightforward with the happiness question mapping. A lot of this is covered in the LSE paper. Where the rubber hits the road is a bit like I was saying at the start, we're sort of the grunts that have collected this on the ground. So yes, there's a lot in that question, which maybe not for now, but yeah, there's a lot of detail in how you actually collect it on the ground if you want to do it.
Great. Well, we're at 1 o'clock now, so I'm going to end the event, but just a quick reminder that the link I've just popped into the chat, and after this event is over, the recording will automatically send to you, and then I will pop the presentation over. And on behalf of Catherine and MeasureUp and everyone, we'd like to thank you for joining us. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.